start with our welcome message, Shari.
Sure. Hi, everyone. I'm Lee Eisen, Executive Director of AIA San Diego. We are a chapter of the American Institute of Architects, which represents more than 95,000 architects nationwide and the world over. So welcome to our foundations panel. I think in the interest of time, I'm going to turn it right over to you, Jamie.
Hi, good morning. Yes, thank you for joining for our foundations panel today. We are very excited to have our esteemed panelists and moderator, Mr. Kevin DeFreitas, talking about the do's and don'ts in a resume. I think we all could use this, even myself, so several years out of school. So I'll turn it over to our moderator, Mr. Kevin DeFreitas.
All right, good morning, everyone. Thanks for joining us. This is supposed to be a conversation, so we're going to share some ideas. If you have any questions, please add them to the chat and address them to AIA San Diego MJ. That's the person, and she will read them at the end. We want to go heavy on the questions because these are things that you're thinking about, and that's what we want to address specifically. But we'll give you some tips that we know to be true. And we have a really terrific panel today. We have Stephen Shin from Gensler, and I'll let them introduce themselves once I go through the list here. And then representing kind of a medium-sized firm, we have Chikako Terada from Rosling Nakamura Terada, RNT. And then joining us in a little bit will be Beth Russell from LPA, which is also another large firm. And then I'm Kevin DeFreitas. I'm a sole practitioner and represent the micro size firm. So I'll be sharing some things that I find interesting in resumes and portfolios and kind of representing that scale of practitioner. So I'm going to turn it over to Steve to introduce himself and share a little bit about who he is and the firm that he represents.
Good morning, Steve Shin, and I am here in Gensler. I serve as a studio director and a sustainability director. I work in one of our 4 studios. I guess to put our firm in context, I think Kevin was referring to us as an uber large firm. So we are almost 6,000 architects and interior designers across the world in 50 offices. Our office here in San Diego has a staff of 100. It's all architects, and even though we are a large firm, even though we're a large firm in San Diego and I think the largest firm in the world from an architecture standpoint, we here locally still do projects that range anywhere from a 3,000 square foot tenant suite renovation to multi-million-dollar, billion-dollar airport renovations and mega blocks for developers. So we do a wide range of work at all scales. So we like to say that we can compete with Kevin, although we can't. and still do some very large projects as well. One project that I've been working on that I think is really interesting right now is we've been doing some master planning opportunities for the Timken Museum in Balboa Park, looking to see if there's ways to expand them and their exhibit space in an underground museum.
Excellent, thanks.
Turn back to you.
Chikako, can you tell us a little bit about your practice and your firm and maybe one project that you're working on these days that's kind of captured your imagination?
Sure. So my name is Chikako Terada with RNT Architects, and we are, like Kevin said, a mid-sized firm. We have about 50 staff, and we have 3 offices in Southern California, one in San Luis Obispo, another one in Ventura, and then the San Diego office is our headquarter office. We have a tiny kind of like a sister office in Osaka, Japan, and we are trying to do some projects together. We've done some projects together, but anyway, it's not really money making or anything. That's just for my hobby. And we do mostly public projects, although we have a wide variety of projects from somebody's kitchen remodel to $150 million public K-12 school. I personally am working on 5 or 6 projects. One of the biggest one is complete mostly complete is Wilson Middle School, Central Elementary School in the mid-city. And Wilson Middle School is pretty much complete. It's got a joint use program and large parking garage, and then on the top is a joint use hard court. That it's pretty interesting project in the mid city, and then I'm hoping that's going to change the neighborhood. Yeah, if you have any chance, please drive by Elkhorn Boulevard. That's on the between 37th and 39th on the Elkhorn Boulevard on the south side.
Excellent, excellent. And is Beth Russell on the call yet? She's joining us from LPA, and she had an engagement that she's said would make her join late. So Beth, are you on?
No, not right now, but I'll
Okay.
be representing LPA.
Nice.
So as everyone knows, I'm Jamie Intervalo. I'm an architect with LPA Design Studios. We are an interdisciplinary studio, multiple engineering professions as well as architecture. So we'll have a lot to share today for our do's and don'ts on resumes.
All right, excellent. Thanks very much. That's our panel, and these are superstars here in San Diego. So write down their names and remember and network them hard. So I want to just give you one idea. If you don't remember anything else from this panel, I hope that you remember this. When you're working on your resume and your portfolio and your cover letter and the job hunting process in general, you need to treat it like it's a design project. You need to do your research. You need to learn about and understand your audience. And you need to communicate your skills, your vision, even your personality graphically so that you stand out. This is a very competitive market, and firms have the option to choose from a lot of candidates, and they're looking for the right fit, not only from a skills basis, because oftentimes they will teach you what you need to learn, but also how you fit culturally. So sharing a bit about your personalities, oftentimes a really good thing. If this doesn't make sense, let me put it in other terms. If you think about this as the dating process, you want to present the best you, maybe a little bit better than you are, but you want to be honest, and you need to communicate who you are and what you bring to the table. So let's jump into our first question: resumes, and portfolios. They're kind of mystifying, right? And you can look online. Arc Daily has some great examples. Architizer. You can find a bunch of examples online. When you're starting out with not a lot of career experience, not a lot of information to kind of fill out your resume, relying primarily maybe on schoolwork and things that you've done up to that point, what are the good and bad examples to learn from? And so I'd like to ask each of our panelists to share one example, either positively or negatively, that they've seen in a resume that really stood out as a thing to emulate or a thing to avoid at all costs. So Chikako, could I start with you?
Oh, sure. Okay. So bad example, that's the easy to start with. Bad example is just a no contrast, it's kind of a bad organization and nothing to really grasp you. What we are looking for is, well, we are trying to read the personality and the character from the resume, and usually resume shows the candidate's design ability and it also organization skills. And this is I think this is a good example on the left that I gave it to Kevin, and anyway, that shows how organization skill is. It's harder to read and really can't tell what the candidate did. So anyway, the personality really shows in resume. So you can see that the person probably has kind of a scattered brain personality and not very detailed, and doesn't have a very good design skills.
Excellent, excellent. Steve, some of the resumes that come across your desk what stands out for you, either in a positive or a negative way?
The one thing to think about is that in a lot of cases, you have maybe 1 to 3 minutes to capture our attention on a resume, and then another 5 minutes maybe to capture us on your entire portfolio, which means that we're spending about 5 or 10 seconds a page just to flip through a portfolio to see if there is information both within the resume and the portfolio that's going to grab our attention. And if it does, then we'll spend some more time digging into it. But the point being is that you need to really make sure that it's graphically strong and that visually dynamic, so that it's capturing our attention and pulling us in. So organization and graphics are really critical. Then the second piece is tailoring it to the firm. But you really should tailor each resume and tweak it in some form for the firm that you're pursuing. In other words, if a firm does mostly public sector work and you've got some experience that's more public sector related, then that should be the first project that you list. If you then take that same resume and you're meeting with a firm that's done a lot of retail or hospitality, and you happen to have some experience in retail and hospitality, even if that might be working at Burger King, then put that in there and explain how that experience is going to benefit you in working with that client type.
And I know here at LPA, we get thousands right now every day. And so I've heard. And unfortunately, we look for the same things. If at first glance we're seeing this, in all honesty, I think our HR team has shared it's less than 5 seconds. We give it a less than 5-second look. You can see right here on the left. I mean, anything in your resume where it's XXX, no, that obviously shows that you did not care enough to create it and differentiate it from whatever template you are using. And all the resume on the right had some color. It doesn't, if that's what indicates your design skill, that's probably not what we're looking for here. So.
Excellent, excellent, excellent. I think that most people may be surprised at the comment that Steve said, really how little time these resumes get looked at. When hundreds are coming in and the HR person is quite busy with all sorts of other tasks, or the principal that's looking at them, they're not going to sit down and read this as if it's a great American novel. They're going to look at it first pass in 15 seconds and decide yes, no, or maybe. And if it's a no, you'll never get out of that pile. If it's a maybe, you may get another 20 seconds where they'll read through another level. But to Steve's point, they're looking at all the highlights. They may look at experience and like, oh, I worked at that firm 20 years ago. Or they may look at education. Oh, we went to the same school. They're equally as smart as I am. And there's all sorts of things that they may pick out, but they're looking at it very, very quickly. And if you're in the yes pile, it's usually quite clear. It's very hard to get in that pile after the first pass. And it's based on just super strong kind of presentation. So your goal is to get in the yes or no and the yes or maybe pile. And so that's really kind of what we're discussing. So excellent, excellent, excellent. Let's move on to the next question here. Let's see. And again, please ask your questions in the chat. Send them to AIA San Diego MJ, and those will get read as we progress. So in terms of pertinent information to include, I want to ask our panelists to give us some information beyond name, email. What's important to highlight in a designer's resume? Is it history of work? And if so, how far back? If they're young designers and don't have a lot of experience, is it okay to show a lot of academic work? What's your opinion on that? Let's start with Jamie.
Yeah. Here at LPA, I know if you are a young designer and you're just coming out of school, that's okay. I wouldn't let that, intimidate you. We love seeing internships. It shows that you have experience in our field and you have a taste for what we're doing, but also If it's not necessarily related to architecture because you couldn't get into that internship, that's okay too. I think our teams here are looking for the longevity in your work experience and your commitment to it. It shows that you have good tenure and that you pursued different things and tried different things, you know. The other thing that we also highlight is show your studio work. I think often that's very interesting for us to see, and that's okay if it wasn't at a formal workplace. And volunteering is cool too. Actually, our HR teams have shared with us that they think it's neat when you say, "Oh, I've done an Ironman." An Ironman is a huge task, and that's a lot of work and a lot of passion, and we love to see that. That means that you're going to be a dedicated, team member for us.
Excellent, excellent. Steve, what jumps out at you as must-haves besides just the pure informational?
I think it's important to get beyond lists. You'll see an awful lot of resumes that might just list projects, or they might list software, and it might be that's kind of the secondary support information. But what's important is trying to translate those lists to what is meaningful to the profession of architecture. So, if you've done an Ironman, then talk about it in the context of the passion, the time, the dedication, and the discipline, because all of those issues factor into what we do as architects. If you have experience in you don't have direct experience with an architectural firm, but you have experience in something else that's indirect. If you've worked in the food and beverage industry, there is, you can speak to, working with teams and dealing with customer service and client engagement. So all of the, what you want to do is, translate the raw bullet points or projects you've worked on to something that's relevant and will speak to what we're looking for in terms of experience and background.
Excellent. Chicago?
Yeah. Okay. So R&T may be a little unique in the sense that we want everybody to become a complete architect, which means that everybody can do from the beginning to the end for the project. So the design approach is very important to us. And for that, we like to see everybody's school projects. And even if you already have some experience, we always want to see school projects just because that really reveals your design approach and what your thought process in design. So that's really important. And then also want to see their personality, how to work with other people, and how to organize your thinking and process as well.
You're muted, Kevin.
From a small firm perspective, everyone needs to wear multiple hats. So
Right.
what I'm looking for are people that have skills that maybe are, you consider them soft skills. And so one of the best resumes I've ever gotten, it was about 15 years ago. I've never forgotten it. It came from a boat builder, and the photography of this wooden boat that he was building was absolutely gorgeous as he chronicled the process of constructing this craft. And it communicated to me his soft skills of photography, of composition, of lighting, of just physical ability to use tools and to make something beautiful. It blew me away. At the time, I wasn't in need of help, but I would have hired that guy. I mean, he was better than me, and it was so impressive. So what Chicago's saying is kind of communicating your personality. If you are the best architect in the world, but you are difficult to work with, it's not worth it. It's just not worth it. The other thing is honesty. What drives me crazy is when you get these matrices with all the little bubbles that are filled in for your skills on computers. And back to what Steve was saying, like, I know Grasshopper, I know Rhino, I know AutoCAD, and I know Revit, and you're like 8 or 9 dots out of 10. I know that you're a liar because I've been doing this for 28 years and I can barely do Microsoft Word and Instagram. So, don't oversell your computer skills, even though you're probably better than the old person who's hiring you. It just doesn't sell well. All right, Moving briskly along, in terms of a cover letter, panelists, what do you like to see in a cover letter, and the length, and what are some highlights that would be attached to the portfolio or the resume? And let's start with you, Chikako.
Oh, okay. So it has to be personable and really tailored to us, because we want to know why you are the best fit to us. And I hate to see like a template, and then sometimes they even misspell my name, you know. And Chicago is, I know it's not a common name, but when they misspell my name, I feel like, oh, they don't know me anyway. They don't really care, you know. So that's really a bad thing. So, you know, spell partner's name correctly. That's probably like a, you know, number one thing. But just really research the firm that you're trying to get a job with.
Again, it's that attention to detail. If you misspell the firm name, I've gotten a couple where they actually forgot to change the previous person's name. And, you know, again, that just shows that you're spamming 500 firms, and you're not very attentive to detail. That doesn't bode well. Steve, what jumps out at you in a cover letter? Like, what would you like to see? What would you don't like to see, in a length?
The first is have one.
Yep.
There's a surprising number of resumes and portfolio links that are submitted and don't have a cover letter, or they simply just have a little email string. So, you know, take the time to know the firm and to tailor the cover letter to the firm, and to highlight how your experiences and your knowledge and your expertise is a great fit for that office.
Excellent. Jamie?
Actually, Beth is back with
Mhm.
us, and I'll let
Oh.
her comment on the cover letter.
All
Hello,
right.
hello, Beth. Welcome. You may
Beth,
be
you're
on mute.
muted still.
So Beth, the question is cover letters. What
There
do
you
you
go.
like to see? What do you not want to see? And what's an appropriate length?
Yeah, so I would say 1 page. Anything beyond that seems excessive. Someone mentioned, I love it when it's personalized. I use the cover letter if we're getting a lot of resumes and I'm trying to understand what somebody's looking for. They all seem good. I'm using the cover letter as a differentiator. So if people are saying why they're interested in our firm, if they're talking about, you know, relocation, sometimes people want to relocate. If they say, I'm looking in San Diego specifically, I came across your firm and here's why I'm interested, that would almost always get my attention.
Excellent. Excellent. Last question, and then we'll open it up to you. So make sure that you send in your questions if you have them. Otherwise, we're going to keep blathering on. The next question is, right connections are often the biggest hurdle in this process. Panelists, do you have any advice for younger students on how to get your resume into the right hands? And Beth, why don't we start with you?
Yeah,
'Cause you
so
know the
I would
right
say
hands. Show 'em
I
your
would say
hands.
a couple
Come on.
things. Yeah. I think number one, when I was in school, I almost wanted to like do it on my own. So I didn't use my parents or professors' connections. That is the wrong attitude. I would say it's all about how you use your network, and it may feel awkward, but ask someone to go to coffee. If there's someone at a firm, reach out. I am much more likely to look at a resume from a referral if I know it's somebody who can vouch than a random applicant. So I would say if you can get your resume into the hands of other professionals in the industry and it's coming from somebody in the company versus a random person, that will put you ahead, definitely. So yeah, leverage those connections and don't be afraid to reach out on LinkedIn if you don't know anyone at a given company.
Excellent advice. Steve, do you have any thoughts on how to get your in front of the right people, the decision makers?
For a firm of our size, since we're so large, we have a rather automated process for people to submit resumes. And so I guess what I would advocate is it's really kind of a two-step process. One is we have a fairly formal, rigorous process where resumes are submitted online, and you provide links to your portfolio, your cover letter, and your resume, and then that gets sent through the HR. HR does a preliminary review, and then they send those off to each of the studio directors within each office. So it's important to go through the formal process to make sure that you're in the system. And then secondarily, if you do have connections with people in the office, then send it to those people and ask if they could forward it on to the appropriate people so that you have the opportunity to approach it from two directions.
Excellent. And Nicole just sent in the comments a tip from a marketing professional in the room: always have someone else read your resume before you send it. And that would apply to a cover letter as well. I was trying to send an email just before this panel to Steve, and he's like, I haven't got it. And I'm like, oh, that's because I put a delay on it. For the first time in 28 years, I sent an email that I desperately tried to claw back and I couldn't. So now I have a 1 minute delay on all my emails so that I can do that. So the whole point is proofread it. In your mind, it says what you thought it said, but when you show it to somebody else, they may find something quite glaring. So excellent, excellent tip, Nicole. Chikako, what's your thoughts?
Being the mid-sized firm is quite different from like Gensler. We actually have like a couple of principals review incoming resumes. I'm one of them, and then usually review the resumes and then see if we're gonna go to the next step, which is the interview. And so it's really important that I guess I'm looking for in the email that if they actually researched what we do and who we are, and then see if they are really good fit. Just by reading the emails, you can usually tell that they are good fit or not. Interesting. And
Yes.
anyway, so that's one thing. And then the other thing is that if this is your first job, I think first like 10 years of your career is really important to have the direction that establish the direction that you want to go in your professional life. Like if you want to really, what kind of a projects do you want to do, or what kind of line of design that you want to do, and kind of figure out where you want to go in the big picture, and then see if you want to really stay in a local area, or you want to broaden your horizon to the world, like go to Europe or go to Japan or wherever you want to go, and then kind of look at the big picture and then make sure that you're going that direction.
Excellent, excellent. Since I'm not as talented as the rest of the panelists, I rely on charm. And so something that my parents taught me very early on is find out somebody's name that you're talking to and use it. It makes them feel great. So a technique I use, and not just getting my resume up, but when you're doing an RFQ or chasing a project, is when someone picks up the phone, make sure you write down their name and their position. When you call back, if you get them, use their name. It's really, really, really a great technique just in the rest of your life as well, that people want to feel known, and it makes them feel like you're paying attention, and it establishes a connection. And sometimes you can trick them and they think that they know you and that they're a friend, and they will push you through. So, and again, back to the original statement that I said, that you've got to treat this like a design process. I want to share an anecdote. One of my neighbors when I was in college was a graphic design student. He was working on his portfolio for a senior thesis. He was applying for jobs. And at spring break, which was 2 months before graduation, he broke his wrist. And back then, all graphic design was done by hand, you know, pen and ink and X-Actos and all that stuff. And he was like mortified that he was going to be unemployable for some time until his wrist healed. And then he got the idea that he was going to stuff his resumes inside 6 plaster casts that he made of his other arm. And he hinged it, put his resume inside, taped it shut, wrote the address on the cast, and mailed it to 6 top firms. And he got 5 jobs offers from that, because whoever went through the effort to break open the cast to find the prize on the inside, they definitely read that resume. He made a great impression, communicated his kind of ability to think through a situation that could have been really negative, and he came out looking like a genius. So I think those are kind of the basic ideas that we wanted to share with you. I hope we have some questions, and if you send those in, MJ will read those and we'll do our best to address them. MJ, anything?
Yes, we do. So regarding the resume, is there a preference when it comes to a bullet point format or paragraph format?
Beth, why don't you address that?
I like bullet points better. I find it easier to read. I kind of like the explanation in the cover letter so that I can get all of kind of the background, but I want to be able to glance at it, see if they have the skills, what they've done. So I would say bullet.
Excellent. MJ, what's the next question?
After reading a
Sorry,
Oh, did you want to answer that? Sorry.
I just wanted to be devil's advocate here and say both. I think it's helpful to have a series of bullet points, but that might be that there's a summary paraphrase at the top that puts those bullet points within the context.
And all this to say is there's no one right answer.
Yes,
I
correct.
hope that you're getting that from this. It's you've got to do what you think highlights your skills, your passion, your interests best. So this is not a formula. MJ, what's the next question?
After reading a job opening, if the applicant doesn't check all the requirements, but they are willing to learn or get better, how should they approach that?
Chicago, I think that's the perfect one for you because you're thinking about that whole kind of person architect.
Yeah, right. So even if you may not have all the skill that's listed, you should definitely go after. And then the best thing to do is probably talk to the person who is going to hire you. Because if you have to go through other channels, maybe the person may not be able, you may not be able to show how you fit into the overall team. So it definitely, I would encourage people to go after.
Yeah, excellent. And my thoughts on that is, if you're an emerging professional, there's not an expectation that you can do, a whole high rise on your own, detail it and do the graphics and entitlements and all that stuff. That's unreasonable. So what I want to see is someone that is teachable, that they want to learn, they're excited by the process, and they acknowledge what they don't know. That's okay. And back to Chicago's point, being open to the process and growing. You can teach, a monkey to draft. It's not that complicated, but it's the thinking part. And that's what makes excellent practitioners excellent, is they can think. This job, and I would say most jobs, I would say most of life is problem solving. And the ones that are successful can elegantly solve those problems and do so in a way that, with a team or individually, where you have the intended outcome.
Yeah,
MJ, what's another
exactly.
question? Oh, I'm sorry, Chicago?
No, I was going to say that, yeah, you're exactly right. Architecture has no prototypes. I mean, every single project is the prototype. So you
Yes.
have to learn it every single time.
Yep. MJ, what's the next question?
The next one is, any networking tips for someone brand new to San Diego area with no connections?
Oh, you've come to the right place. You've come to the right place. Look at Lee smiling from ear to ear. There is a lot of opportunities through AIA San Diego, programming like this. I encourage you to attend as much as you can. You will meet people. It is a small profession. There's something like 3.5 million people between the Mexican border, Orange County, and Imperial County that represents San Diego County. I don't know, 3.5, 4 million people. And how many registered architects are there? Something like 1,200 or 1,500. There's not that many. And so networking is critical. Beth said it earlier about meeting people, using your family connections. Anything that you can do to make those connections is a benefit. And there's a ton at AIA. There are other organizations like the San Diego Architectural Foundation that holds events. Attend those, get to know people, know their name, get out there. Beth said it, and maybe Beth, you can talk a little bit more about that, about the value of someone that comes to you as a referral from a current employee. Tell us what your thoughts are on that versus someone who's coming in cold.
Yeah, so we've tracked a lot of our hires, and oftentimes the tenure from a referral is much higher. So right off the bat, just with that data, they have a lot more credibility. But if you have somebody that applies, you really don't know anything about them. If you have somebody that comes through a referral, that person can say, I vouch for this person, they're a hard worker, they're really creative. And those are three things that you don't know about, you know, somebody else. So I think that's huge. I would also say if you're new to the area, just participate in things that you like. It's amazing how from, you know, whether it be a mom group or volleyball, I've met people in the profession without even trying. So I think if you're doing things you're passionate about and making connections, a lot of them, you just never know where they'll take you. In addition to industry networking, which is definitely key.
Yeah, this is not a profession for the timid. Does anyone else have a thought on that? We can maybe get to one or two more questions. We're down to our last 2 minutes.
Well, I can add one thing to the question. So, you know, even if they are not hiring, if you have a favorite architectural firm in the area, I encourage people to just contact the architect and then get that person's advice. We've done it before. Like somebody came to San Diego, and then we know R&T's work, and then where should I go? I have this portfolio. What would you recommend me to do? And then we actually recommended him to get an interview with this firm. Why don't you try these people? And then, you know, that could work too. So just don't be discouraged. So just knock on the door and then talk to architects.
Kevin, I just wanted to add real quickly, when I came to town 7 years ago, the first place I went was AIA San Diego. I mean, I was already an AIA member, but I actually checked in with the office and had a chance to speak with the previous executive director, Bus. And, you know, he gave me a lot of insights. You know, I kind of explained what I was looking for, and he gave me a lot of insights as to, you know, the firms that I should be getting in touch with, and gave me some resources and some of the inside information on the firms that helped me get to know them a little bit better beyond what I could find in my research. And then I also joined the San Diego Green Building Council as another local organization that has strong contacts within the built community, and both of them have been great resources. The one other thing I wanted to share is that obviously most of you are not licensed yet. Most firms, I think, are looking for people that are pursuing licensure. I don't know of really any firms that are hiring drafters anymore. That the expectation is that this is a profession and a career. It's not a job. And obviously you're not going to be licensed yet, but there are other ways to really show your interest and your dedication, and you could become a lead AP or a well AP, and you can achieve those kinds of credentials to augment your background fairly quickly and effectively. So that's something to think about. And I encourage everyone to think about anything that they've done as it relates to sustainability, either in their current studio work or elsewhere, because sustainability and zero net energy are going to become bigger and bigger issues that our profession has to face here, especially in California, where we're going to zero net energy in less than 10 years. And all of our offices need help to figure that out, because we haven't done it yet. And so if the next generation can come in with some skills, approaches, ideas, or software that they've used in those areas, that's something that I also look for in resumes.
Excellent. And if you look down in the chat down there, Lee has put in the phone number for AIA San Diego, as well as the website, which is aiasandiego.org. And there is a ton of really wonderful programming that the chapter hosts. A lot of it's free for students, some's not, but it's do it. I guess we ran a little bit long here, so I'm going to wrap it up. I just had one more comment that Chicago kind of triggered in me, is that if you have a short list of firms that you really would like to get to, you meet with them, you're not successful, that means nothing. The next week, Steve's working on projects like at the airport. These are $100 million projects, and a firm lands that the next month, all of a sudden they need to staff up. So just because it's no today doesn't mean it's no tomorrow. You don't want to be a stalker, but being persistent, again, back to the dating metaphor, you know, persistence oftentimes results in the intended goal here. So I think that the other thing that Chicago said that was really relevant that I want to share from a small firm, I will probably get 30 resumes in a year. Only one person out of that 30 will follow up with a phone call. And if they follow up with a phone call, I personally will always give them an hour, either on the phone or meet them for coffee, even just for an informational interview. And that's a nice way to get access to some principals or hiring managers to say, can I have an informational interview? Do you have 15 minutes? Do you have 30 minutes? So the expectation of a job is not necessarily there. You're practicing your skills. You're asking questions. They're asking you questions, and you're learning. Beth, what do you think about informational interviews? Does LPA do those or no time?
You know, if people reach out to me, I always try to talk to them.
Yes.
It's been a strange year because of COVID. And so in the past, we would be meeting with students at career fairs, and now it's 10 minutes with someone sometimes, which just isn't enough to kind of get to know them. But I mean, I'm always trying to connect people, right? If someone has an interest or passion in a certain, you know, project type or learning more, I try to get them in touch with who would be the best person. So yeah, I think always ask. The worst that can happen is you hear no and you're not out anything.
Exactly. Well, we are out of time. Thank you very much for hanging with us. I'd like to thank our panelists, Steve Shen from Gensler, Chikako Terada from Rosalind Nakamura Terada, and Beth Russell from LPA, and Jamie Intervallo from LPA for organizing and putting this all together, and MJ, Karen, and Lee Eisen from AIA for hosting and doing all the technical. If you have any questions, feel free to shoot them to MJ or Lee, and they'll get them to us if that's appropriate. And I wish you great success in your future career. It's a really wonderful profession, and go get them. Thanks so much.
Thank you, everyone.
Goodbye.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone. See you in the next session.